So welcome to the Tuesday, October 19th, 2021 meeting of the Parks Advisory Commission, the City of Ann Arbor. This meeting is being held electronically to protect public health and safety due to the COVID-19 virus and to comply with orders issued by the Governor, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and/or the Washtenaw County Health Department. We intend to conduct this meeting similarly to an in-person meeting. However, please be patient if there are technical issues. Public comment will be via telephone only. To speak during any of the public comment opportunities, please call 877-853-5247 or another of the published numbers and enter meeting ID 949-7173-0458. This information is also available on the published agenda in the public notices section of the city website and on the broadcast of this meeting on CTN, Channel 16, AT&T Channel 99, and online at www.a2gov.org/watchctn and select government channel. Josh, could you please call the roll for us?
Of course. Commissioner Morrison.
Present from Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Commissioner London.
Here, also from Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Ramaswamy.
Present, Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Commissioner Borgsdorf. Commissioner Kraut.
Present, Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Commissioner Skyless.
Present, Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Commissioner Marson.
Present, Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Commissioner Smith. And Councilmember Graham.
Here in Ann Arbor.
We have a quorum.
Great. Thank you, Josh. Next on the agenda, approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda? Seeing none, moving on to our first public comment period. Anyone wishing to address PAC during public comment will have 3 minutes to speak, and there will also be a second public comment period at the end of our meeting. Kristen, do we have any callers right now for public comment?
Caller ending in 844 can address the Park Advisory Commission.
Hello.
Hi, yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, I'm calling from Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'm a high school student from Community High School, and I am, as far as I know, the youngest person in the Food Forest Coalition about the food forest in Leslie Park. And I was just calling in to say, well, to speak on it for a little bit before I have to hop off a little bit later. But the food forest has been such a light in my life. Both me and my mom have known the people who have been working on it for a long time. And it was just such a lovely project to really help out with, because you can obviously tell as soon as you step foot in it that there's so much care and integrity that goes into each step of the process. And as someone in the coalition, I can I can say wholeheartedly that that is definitely the right impression to get. I've been so excited because I've been trying to get the Ecology Club at Pioneer involved, or at Pioneer, at Community involved with it, and possibly get, I can't remember which group it's for, but possibly get someone who showed up to the Food Forest, to the Harvest Festival this last weekend, help from that as well. And it's like just the level of community that can be seen in this project is something that I just wanted to speak to and bring awareness to, because it has been such a, I mean, this last almost 2 years has been such a trying time, and it has definitely been a reason to keep on working and keep on pushing through. But just wanted to bring attention to that.
Thank you for calling in and offering your comments. Kristen, do we have any other callers this time?
Participant with the username rnacy can address the Park Advisory Commission.
Yeah, my name's Rich Nacy. Can you hear me?
Hi, yes, we can. Go right ahead.
Oh, great. I appreciate it. Yeah, if I can share my screen, there's a button on the bottom here someplace. I don't see it. If Adam's on, is Adam on the line? I'm sorry for this.
Kristen, this is, he is with one of the presentations.
Yes. All right. I will move you back out and then move you back in.
Oh, yeah, Rich, I'm sorry. We're not quite to the band shell presentation yet.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, we're still on just public comment, so we'll be to your item in just a couple minutes.
My apologies.
No, that's okay. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for clarifying, Josh.
Yeah.
No problem.
Thanks, Josh. Any other callers for public comment right now?
Yes. Caller ending in 735 can address the Park Advisory Commission.
Hi, my name is Maro Beauchamp. Can you hear me?
Hi, yes, we can. Go right ahead.
Hi, I am calling in to voice my support for the Community Food Forest Project at Leslie Park. I am a 29-year-old Japanese American citizen of Ann Arbor and a resident of the Arrowwood Hills Co-op. I am also a member of the Community Food Forest Coalition. I just wanted to say it's been an absolute saving grace for me to be involved with the food forest during this whole pandemic. To have the opportunity to collaborate on a project with my friends and my neighbors here, and wonderfully met strangers, and having the opportunity to collaborate on a project that has had a positive impact on the local environment, both ecologically and culturally. It's been an amazing learning experience, and I'm very excited to see this project continue and to develop and grow, hopefully inviting forward more food forests to bloom in the Ann Arbor area to come. I'm just asking PAC to please back this initiative with your full support so that we as a city can demonstrate a healthier future for the rest of our human family. Thank you so much.
Thank you for offering your comments. Kristen, anyone else on the line?
Caller ending in 231 can address the Park Advisory Commission.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, yes, we can.
Hi, my name is Vishnu Nair, and I'm calling in support for the Food Forest Project at Leslie Park. First, I'd like to thank the committee for approving the food forest for the first year, and would like to encourage you to extend your support for the project moving forward. I have been a resident of Ann Arbor since 2017 when I moved from India to the US to pursue my graduate studies at the U of M. And I've been part of the food forest from the very beginning, and it's been an amazing experience meeting new people from all different walks of life, from different countries, kids as young as, younger than 10 to all the way grandmothers who are in their 70s. And I've made so many new friends and even deepen a lot of my friendships. I wrote a letter in support of the project, but I just thought I'd just show up to say a few words. So it's amazing during this last year to see the place transform, and also to see the thing that stays with me is how young children react to the space and how they are so amazed, and they pointing out when they see the toads the bees, the so many flowers, the mushrooms, and to see the wonder in their eyes, the way they respond to that, and the way they react to it, and ask their parents questions as to what this is and what that is. And that is something that places where you can react or interact with nature just at your backyard, those kind of places, I think Ann Arbor can do with having more of such spaces. And it's amazing to see the kids react to that. And you know that that kind of wonder is good for the person as a kid as they grow up. And they will make better decisions in terms of caring for the environment when they grow up. And as you know, journalist and author Richard Love points out, we cannot protect something we do not love, and we cannot love what we do not know, and we cannot know what we do not see and touch and hear. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you so much for letting me speak.
Thank you for calling in and sharing your comments. Do we have other callers, Kristen?
Yes, Councilmember Hayner's hand was.
Great. Councilmember Hayner, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I had to be let back in. For some reason, I was kicked out to attendees. I just want to make it clear that the city charter in section 517A states quite clearly that the city administrator, the mayor, and council members shall be privileged to attend the meetings of each such board, including the Department of Parks and Recreation, and to take part in its discussions, and shall receive copies of the minutes of the board's meetings and of all reports prepared by it. So I'm not sure who was instructed to kick me out into the attendees room, but I certainly am allowed to belong in this part of this discussion. And I just wanted to make that clear.
To jump in, as the person who sponsored the resolution that removes you from committees, you're removed from committees,
of the charter.
and it doesn't belong. Like, this doesn't belong here. It's so unnecessary. They have work to do. Like, take your complaints elsewhere. Seriously, let them do their work, please. You're back in January.
I'm back in now. I was never out. It's a violation of the charter.
Do you really want me
Any
to call
city
the
council
attorney?
member is allowed. Is 517A says the mayor, the city administrator, and all council members are privileged to attend the meetings of the Parks Department.
Yeah, you can attend
And
with the
take
panelists.
place in the
with the
discussions.
attendees. Go
and
attend.
take place in the discussions.
This is like to bring your own stuff into it. I'm
My
so
own
sorry.
stuff. I serve the city just like you do. I serve the city. I
Councilmember
serve
Hayner,
the Parks Department. I'm done speaking.
I appreciate your comments. And it looks like you're in now. I think it might be best if we can continue with the public comment period.
Thank you.
And move the meeting along.
I apologize.
If this is the only way I get to speak by raising my hand, then I'm going to take this opportunity.
Understood. Thank you for commenting. Kristen, do we have other callers on the line?
No callers have indicated.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to approval of the minutes. Attached in your packet are the minutes of the September 21st, 2021 PAC meeting. Are there any corrections to the minutes or a motion to approve?
I move their approval. I had a chance to look. They looked okay. Ann?
Great. Motion by Steve, and I see a second from Ruth. Any further comments regarding the minutes? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Thank you. Moving on to presentations. Our first presentation is in regards to the West Park band shell. And we have a few folks joining us to update us on the band shell. So Adam Furco from the city, as well as Jamie Burton and Richard Nacy. I think, Adam, if you want to begin whenever you're ready.
Hi, yes. Thanks everyone for having me today. Last commission meeting we talked, I gave a quick overview about the band shell, kind of where we are going. We are working with Hubble, Roth, and Clark, which is with Jamie Burton and Richard Macy. They're here from them. And so I thought we'd just do a little deeper dive into our findings so far. We did just get the final report, and so we're going to put that on our website tomorrow so that that's available to the public. And so we'll make that comment so it'll be out there. But yeah, I'd just like to kind of pass this over to Rich and Jamie right now, and I'd be happy to answer any questions at the end, and they'll be around as well. So Rich, do you want to kind of take over?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Adam. I appreciate it. Again, apologies for jumping in earlier. I'm much more familiar with Teams than I am Zoom, but let me try and share my screen here for the presentation. Okay. Let me start at the, okay. Can you see the first slide? Is that
it doesn't look like you're sharing yet.
really? Uh-oh. Let me try it again. How about now?
Now it's coming up now. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Very good.
Now you're sharing.
Okay. And all can hear. That's good. Yeah. We started, the band shell itself was all, the investigation was dealing with the building foundations. And what I'd like to do is kind of give a summary of our findings and also the recommendations for that, understanding that the nature is historical and we want to preserve as much as we can in there. The investigation was actually broken into phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 was primarily above ground investigation of the foundations. And then phase 2 was actually, we had excavated local excavation around the foundations. We had 3 test pit areas to determine more of the structure's condition below grade. The primary objectives were really to understand what the city's concerns were with the building itself, understand how the structure behaves, and really understand the historical significance and also the nature of the construction back then. And then again, understand a series of changes that have occurred over time for this. And then ultimately that to actually develop the requirements for the phase 2 investigation. What we found in the phase 1 investigation, the above ground, was that the foundation itself consists of masonry block walls, and this area here, can you see hopefully you can see the cursor. This is a covered area of stucco. These are the exposed block. There's a couple of big items that concern us. One is this block wall is bowing out away from its center. And you can see by this crack line here, it's wider than it is up in here, meaning that it's bowing out, it's restrained by the soil below and at one point by the floor slab above. So it laterally is bowing out. The other thing to note in here is the white area is all salts, or what we call efflorescence. That is a deterioration of the block where moisture on the inside of the building is trying to migrate through, and it's drawing some of the cementitious material through it. And the other thing to notice, or another one, is that there's quite a series of random cracks that are also occurring within the blocks themselves. When you locally observe the blocks themselves, you can see the original cracker that has formed from this. The black on the inside is actually the grout, and it's, hopefully you can see it, the grout itself has deteriorated over time. It's more like aggregate now. So these two predominant situations occurred on all of the exterior walls. On the floor slab, the interior floor slab, there were cracks along. This is the outside face of the wall where the top of the wall was moving outward in this direction. This is a uniform crack indicating that the movement on top laterally is constant throughout. This floor slab was originally connected to the top of the block. So with this lateral movement, it has now cracked the floor on both sides, on the west and the east wall face. The other thing to note here, while this is a control joint, there is cracking that has occurred around the steel column, and also this is another similar crack to the ones we had found. This is a close-up view if you're looking down at the crack, and you've noticed on the inside of the crack, again, it's uniform thickness. This is a type of sandy, cementitious type of material that was placed in here. And with a chaining pin, you could definitely get the consistency originally from a lightweight concrete, what we call flow fill, to more of a kind of a sand backfill arrangement. The point is that the consistency of the fill material has changed underneath the slab. So the conclusions on the phase one, based on the above ground, we do not believe the masonry walls are salvageable. They need to be replaced. The bowing, the internal pressure that's being caused by that cementitious sandy material needs to be corrected. And fortunately, in phase two, we were able to obtain from Adam several very important contract documents and changes that have occurred, which further explain the changes to the structure over time. Another conclusion of the phase one is that we have to create these test pit areas really to see if the below grade masonry block is salvageable or can be reused. And then we also need soil borings, one at the current structure and one about 200 feet to the north, and trying to get a comparison of the changes in the soils that have occurred over time. The ground is saturated out there, and this, especially with the salts coming through or the efflorescence, this has had a very detrimental effect to the foundation walls themselves. And the final conclusion is when we saw the amount of bowing that has occurred, then it was very prudent to fence off and close off that area to the public. This led to the phase two, which the bottom line on the phase two investigation was to see if the below grade masonry block was reusable or not. And really the second part was also to understand really the historical changes that have occurred to the structure and develop foundation recommendations, and also understand the soil properties that have changed over time. In order to understand that, we had to go back and reconstruct the history of this. And these are just the highlights, but it originally constructed in 38. There was a basement area that had restrooms and a storage area. Utilities included only water and electrical. There was no heat. In 93, there was a new steel bandshell space truss that was installed. The below grade doors and a majority of the windows were filled in or blocked in. Then in 2003, this cementitious type backfill material that I mentioned earlier was installed. And then in 2009, there were significant topo drainage characteristic changes that have occurred, including the 3 large wetlands, a couple of basins, and also the upstream control structure. The majority of this flow travels from west to east at a very slow rate, something to keep in mind. And then the other overall, just to consider the duration of the foundations that have been in services for over 80 years right now. This is a historical photograph of the area. A couple things to take away from this. One is that's the door, that's the stairwell that went down. Inside were the restrooms and storage area, and then these were the windows. The other thing is this structure is the arch and the building. They are one unit. They are tied together. Okay, this shows the foundations. Right here is the top of footing. That's a top of concrete where the block is sitting on top. So the bottom of the foundations are about 4 foot below grade. There is no there's no concrete floor. It's all masonry block construction, pilasters, stairs, and that sort. This is a plan view of the area, the foundation area. This is a storage area that has a dirt floor, if you will. And these were the 2 public restrooms originally constructed. This way, pointing down, is north, to give you a reference. This is the arch up above. The important thing on this slide is that, again, this is a dirt floor, and those are concrete floors. In test pit number 1 was located at the southeast corner of the building. You can see the cracking that has occurred in the foundation, and also the stucco and the cracking that has occurred to the masonry block here. We dug down in this area about 5 feet. You can see here, this is actually the top of the concrete footing right here. This is the vertical edge. What's happened here is that you have saturated soils underneath, and that's and the other part is that the groundwater is actually flowing or percolating from the bottom of the footing upward. In test pit 3, we found, test pit 2, we found the same type of environment. This is one of the doors that was inlaid in 2003. This area here shows the amount of deterioration that has occurred, and that is actually a void now that has occurred also. And then in test pit 3, again, it was the same results from test pit 1 and 2. The takeaway on this is that this is actually flowing. It's a small river that's occurring underneath and at the foundations. So the conclusions from in phase 2 was number 1, first and foremost, the grout strengths and the block strengths have been compromised due to the long submergence in groundwater and to the freeze-thaw cycles. The groundwater table was about 2 foot below grade here, yet freeze-thaw is actually 42 inches below grade. So there was about 2 foot above where it was going through the freeze-thaw cycles, which is also the area where the backfill had changed from cementitious material to sand. It degraded over time. This cementitious sandy material is what's causing the bowing and what has caused the crack in that floor slab to tear apart. all in all, there's a lot of moisture that's retained within the structure. And if you remember, there was also in the storage area, there was the dirt floor. Moisture can easily wick its way through, and also it can wick its way through that concrete floor slab, not as easily in the rest areas. The other takeaway that we had was that there is a flow of groundwater underneath this. It's not stagnant. And based on the two soil borings we had taken, one to the north about 200 feet, and then one also at the structure, this structure is currently supported on peat and soft silty sands. This is classified as poor soils. The ultimate conclusion really is that if to retain usage of this, the bandshell area, new foundations are required. A couple of options. One is that alternate A is we relocate this structure out of the floodplain. We can include public restrooms in a similar basement and conventional foundations as what this started with. You would have a new audience and seating and patio area. The life expectancy is about 50 to 75 years. And the conceptual cost is about $2 million. This being out of the floodplain, based on the soil borings we had taken, the water table is about 7 to 8 feet below grade, whereas it's about 2 feet where it's at now. Now you can certainly leave the structure where it's at now, but that would require what we call helical piers or deep foundations. And that is basically it's installing giant screws in the ground that would probably be about 40 feet deep, something like that, and then supporting the building on that. The downside is because of the water table that's out there, construction of this would be very difficult because of the dewatering efforts. There would not be any type of public restrooms. You would utilize the same seating and patio, and the life expectancy because of the helical piers, it would be less than what would be with the conventional foundations in alternate A. And as far as relocating out of the floodplain, a couple of choices would be either to the north a ways or to the south a ways. In either event, the water table is considerably lower than it is at this location. And with, again, with the current location, the deep foundations would be required for that. And that I did want to present that information, and hopefully that was clear to follow what we had accomplished at this point. But the cost for that, and we have HRC has provided the memo to Adam indicating the cost breakdown on that also. To save the structure, you do need new foundations, and it's unfortunately not an easy solution or fix to this. Part of those costs, we did contact historical building movers. In fact, there's one outfit in Kansas City that really kind of specializes on this type of work. The movement would be the shell and the timber portions of the building. Everything above the masonry block would move. In alternate A, the foundation would be very similar, except it would be poured concrete as to what's out there. It would include restrooms, and it would be new seating and arrangements like that. Whereas if it remained at its current location, it would be it would look similar to a beach house at the ocean. where the house itself would be up on stilts. That's kind of the synopsis of our investigation to date. I know that was kind of quick, but is there any questions that hopefully I can address, or comments, or?
Steve, go ahead. And then Lauren, I see you next.
Thank you. Thanks for all that information. I guess I'm a little less concerned at the moment about what comes in the future. And my question is more about what you found there, what the current conditions are. If I heard you right, the fencing around it is because it's not safe, as I understood it, for people to be on there.
That's correct.
Or in the building. As I walked by it, I didn't know if it was the fencing was there because the testing or other activities were underway. But am I understanding that correct? Like, you don't think it's safe for people to use it?
That is correct. The bowing of the walls has exceeded a comfort level where if it continues, which it should, then you will lose support of the building.
Okay, thank you.
If I can just add one quick comment to that. The interior of the building is locked by park staff. They keep people out of the building, but every time I've been out there and Rich has been out there, there has been people who utilize the shelter for cover, the shell part for cover, and or they're playing on it, they're sitting on it, or they've used it for some sort of shelter. So it's an exterior structure. We can't keep people out of it without the fence, and it's just not safe at this point.
Lauren, go right ahead.
Thanks. I had a question as we consider your recommendations and the different options. I appreciated sort of the breakdown of how those looked. With regard to keeping it sort of in the same spot, you mentioned, although it's a lower cost, obviously there are some downsides, one of which is dewatering efforts that would be needed to sink those stilts as low as we need to sink them. Would you also anticipate that there would be additional upkeep that would be required if we left the building in its current space that isn't necessarily taken account of in the estimate that you've given so far?
I'm going to answer one part, then let Rich answer the other. Hi, I'm Jamie Burton with HRC, by the way.
Hi, Jamie.
I'll leave the structural, but the site civil is always going to be under jeopardy. The site civil side of this, the planting area, there's a river that runs underneath this and through this site. So the upkeep from an external and a site perspective is always going to be there, and it will always, you've got 2 retention ponds on either side of this. There's Phragmites growing. The reality is keeping in the spot from a site plan will require additional upkeep just on the exterior. Now, Rich, you can comment on the interior, which I think you're going to say about the same thing.
On the interior, I think what would have to happen in order to accommodate its current site location, again, it kind of goes back to the analogy of the oceanfront house up on stilts. There would have to be some version of an air void underneath the bottom of the structure where you would be able to see the stilts or the helical piers, if you will. That is one way to accommodate it. The difficulty would be stairs, which you can build in arrangements to accommodate that. Yes.
Thanks. Yeah, I guess my concern would be, are we always kind of going to be living with the threat that, one of these stilts could be compromised again and that kind of thing as we go forward, if we were sort of thinking about that.
I would clarify that by saying these stilts are 40-some feet deep, drilled almost into, a foundation. It's really the washing out underneath it and the washing out through it. It's literally a house on stilts. And what we allow stuff to happen underneath it so it doesn't affect above it. So that'll always be in jeopardy, or we'll have to continue to monitor that. The house won't move. Rich will make sure the house stays exactly on the top of the stilts. It's just everything around it has the potential to shift.
Thank you very much.
Ruth, you can go ahead whenever you're ready. And then Julie, I see you next.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions. Maybe start with the first one. Is those costs that you showed, do they take into, that's just the reconstruction costs, or do they include the cost of the ongoing water mitigation that would be needed in the original site?
Well, I'm sorry, I lost a couple sentences there.
Do they need, is the cost that you showed, is that inclusive of the ongoing water mitigation that would be needed, or is that just reconstruction costs?
Those are not maintenance costs. Maintenance ongoing costs are not included. That is simply to pick it up and move it.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought.
Mhm.
And then the other question is, so it sounds like it's not in good shape, it's a hazard, and regardless of what happens, it would need to come down very soon. And I assume that's, first of all, not included in these costs, or maybe it is. And it may not be you, maybe it's Josh or Adam who talks about like would it need to come down even if we were to say, we don't want to rebuild it, this was not a good thing to have there.
Yeah, I can jump in a little bit. I mean, I think that what we came today to you with is kind of our findings and the potential recommendations that go along with this. This is kind of the first step in regards to what we may do moving forward. There will need to be a lot of community engagement. There'll be different things. I mean, it is a wonderful, visual thing within the city of Ann Arbor. It is also a $2 million improvement that we've got to figure out how we do. And is it the location? Is it the right thing? There's going to be a series of conversations after today about what the value of this building is and how we best move forward with it, because the amount of usage in the band shell is not what it used to be. There's a number of different things, probably because of conditioning is part of that, but we kind of have to look to see what the value is of it there. So to answer the question today, we're going to have those questions and that community engagement and the discussions with consultants and with the internal city staff and councils and different groups to make sure that we have an idea of what we need to do.
Okay, so, but that's sort of my question, but not really. I mean, I think it is valuable. I was just throwing that out, but I guess the sort of crux of my question is this something that needs to come down in the next year, regardless of what happens? Or is this like, it could stay up for 5 more years? I mean.
So I'll answer this. Unfortunately, I don't mean to be crafty. The second I tell you a year, it'll come down in a month. The second I tell you 10 years, it'll be, there's no way to tell. The short answer is you have some time to work through a process on what Josh just talked about.
Okay.
As long as you keep the fence around it, and it is not safe for it's our opinion, it's not safe for occupancy, and people should not be in it, on it, around it, unless they're park staff and they're doing whatever they need to do in it. It should not be programmed space at all until you have that. But I don't think Josh is talking about a 10-year process. He's talking more in months. And so I think we're comfortable with that. If you choose not to do anything with it, it will come down on its own, or you will have to bring it down at some point. But we're comfortable with you working through the process that Josh outlined.
Thank you.
And we have reached out to all the groups that have historically used it the last few years and let them know that it is closed for next year. And we're doing everything we can to keep people off of it.
Thank you.
Julie, do you want to go ahead?
Thank you. Yeah, the visuals were incredibly helpful. I think it, makes the recommendations pretty clear from my mind if we were to keep it, which way to go. I think it's more of a comment. I know this was not your job, but to know what it would cost to do it without moving the building, I think would also be useful information in terms of, not necessarily for this, but moving forward. We had a lot of conversation actually about public restrooms in and near the downtown. So I thought that was fascinating historically that this was a part of it. so I appreciate the presentation, and I just a request that, we would need, and there's always the option tear it down and do nothing, but what is that option C if we were to build it not in the floodplain, but not move the structure? Thanks.
Yeah, if I could maybe comment on that, we did on alternate B, we did look at that and try and understand what would have to happen to the building itself because of the foundation requirements. The timber building itself would have to be picked up and moved maybe 50 feet to the south while we get in and do the new foundations to install these helical piers and
that's not, I meant like if you were just to tear it down and build a new bench shell.
Oh, a whole new, you're right.
Yeah,
not
like
looked at
just,
that option.
Like what would, I think it's important to understand what that cost would be as we move through with these community discussions.
Okay.
If what would it, for the same price or less, could we get one that lasts more than 50 to 75 years? I don't know, or that meets some other emerging needs in the community.
Right. Pravina.
Yeah, thank you very much. So my question is actually there's two pieces. I'm not sure if I missed it, but was there a proposal of where we could potentially move it if that was an option? I didn't see that on the map, or maybe I missed it. And while
we gave two options. And we're going to give Adam has this PowerPoint, and he can send that to everybody as well. One option is to move it, just to flip flop it and put it on the north side of kind of the river valley. Just rotate it and put it on the hill right there. The other is to move it into the field to the south. Those are kind of the two spots, considering what's already programmed space there, where they could kind of go. But once you pick it up, we don't want to be miles away, but we want to be in that general area. Otherwise, the cost will go way up. But we did provide two thoughts, but those are not have tos or only spots. We could look at other spots in the park. We just didn't do that because we didn't want to get into really looking at program space or disruption of other program space to move it. We just kind of look where are some easier ways to move it.
Sure. And then the other one was regarding the use that people are using it right now. It's maybe doing an evaluation of seeing how we can do higher fencing or put something on the stage to ensure that no one is actually being able to get into the band shell currently because of the pictures you showed us in the condition. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Or Adam, did you have anything that you needed to add?
I didn't. I can share this presentation with you all. And then again, I'm just going to put this report on the website tomorrow with the description. And so we'll have people can reach out to me if they have any questions.
Great. Any further discussion? Pravina, yeah, one more. Yeah.
And just to understand, as part of this process, would this be a public for the entire city to have a discussion, or only people within that ward? If when feedback was being received, because I know this band shell is used by a lot of people that are.
It would be wide-reaching. It is considered a regional or community-wide park, so we would be looking to get as many groups to comment on it. So, that would be
I do think it's going to be quite a large community engagement program. Like, as everyone knows what this band shell is, and that means various things to everyone. So I think it's going to be pretty intensive of reaching out.
Great. Any other comments or questions? All right. Well, thank you all for joining us and answering all of our questions today.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you.
Thanks. Moving on to our next presentation. It is regarding the M14 and Business 23 over Huron River Bridge Rehabilitation Project. So we have a couple of guests joining us today. So we have Dave Borneman with NAP, Chris Ellenboss, as well as Jeff Triesenberg. Dave, I'll let you go ahead and get started if you want.
Well, I'll pretty quickly hand it over to Jeff. He is with MDOT, and He's here to tell us about a project that is going to be happening over the Huron River on the M14 bridge, and will be right over top of Bandamer and Argo, and it's going to tell us about some of the potential impacts to those parks with this associated with this project.
Great, Jeff.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to say I was surprised to see that you guys are starting with 2 structural engineers in your meeting. I thought it was going to be a lot more fun than that. Yeah, so Dave, MDOT's been working with Dave during the development process of this project, and we're very close to having it to starting with our contractor. And he asked if we could come to share some information with you before we get started. So I'm going to share my screen. Maybe. We also use Teams mostly, and MDOT. Okay, can you guys see the presentation slides?
Yes, we can.
Great.
Thanks.
Okay, so what we're trying to do here is bridge maintenance to maintain the structural integrity of the structure. This is the M14 bridge over Huron River on the north side of Ann Arbor. And of course, it kind of spans over some park property that the city of Ann Arbor maintains. So I'm going to explain to you, I want to kind of talk mostly about the impacts to the parks that are going to be required in order for us to do this project. But first, I want to kind of explain the scope of the project and the methods, and that'll help you understand why we're doing what we're doing. So our project goals are pin and hanger replacement, bearing replacement, high friction surface coating, and some substructure patching. And I'll explain what those things are in just a minute. There's these red arrows up here, if you can see, point to some link plates that are essentially holding that span up. This span over the river here that you're seeing is suspended by these hanger plates. And there are 4 locations where there are lines of these at each girder. This also shows the bearing offset here, where the picture in the bottom right shows how the bearing is slid over time. This bridge was erected in the 50s, and it's moved a bit, and for whatever reason, so we're trying to correct that with this project also. Doing these things, this type of bearing realignment, pin and hanger replacement is fairly typical work for MDOT bridges, but the locations here and the type of structure make it a little bit unusual and unique here. One of our project goals was to keep M14 traffic or impact M14 traffic as little as possible. So you can see a schematic here of the pin and hangers. This plate, if you can you guys see my mouse? Whoops.
Yes, we can.
All right, that's good. I'm going to use it to highlight some things on these pictures because they're engineering drawings, and it can be a little bit overwhelming, I think, to look at all the detail here. But this plate is what we're replacing. And this plate attaches to the anchor span and holds up the suspended span on the left side. There's pins in between there that allow it to do that. And all of our work is going to be done below the bridge. Normally we would work above the bridge, but that would impact the traffic. So we have these special supports here that are going to be fabricated and installed. And those are, and I'll have to get to it in a minute, how those are going to be installed, because that's the tricky part. And then the bearing realignment is relatively simple. We're going to add a corbel onto the pier and replace the bearing and reset it so it's in the correct position. The only problem is to do that, because these girders are very heavy, there's only 2 of them per bound, and there are very long spans here that span over the river. So there's a pretty substantial temporary support that needs to be erected. And this will happen on the south side of the river only. But this temporary support goes up. We have to excavate the existing riprap, or those rocks, on the south end of the bridge, and build this steel structure to support it. And then once this steel structure is built, it will move under each girder one at a time to replace that. So how we access and move those temporary supports into place is with the suspended system from below. So this will allow traffic to stay up on the bridge, and the contractor will suspend this this system below it with cables, and then they can use it to move these supports out to the locations they need to be installed. This is important because it's going to allow us to, we won't have to build anything in the river. We won't have to build any, impact the, any boat traffic, and we can work above the water and below the traffic to accomplish our tasks. So, and I have a map here of the kind of the vicinity. And I'm going to kind of flip back and forth to that because there's several restrictions that we have placed on our contractor, because our goal is to not impact the park functions and not impact the way that people use the park, or to impact it as little as possible. So the first thing that we're going to do is videotape the park and any features prior to construction, so that when we're done, it'll be easy to understand if we've damaged anything that needs to be reconstructed. Pedestrian access will always be maintained underneath RO1, which is the bridge. Sometimes we call it RO1, on the north and the south sides of the river. So, in order to do that, we're going to close the right lane of Barton Drive and reroute the river trail on the north side of the river to the north side of the pier. So this trail that runs on the north side along Barton Road is going to be temporarily relocated closer to Barton Drive. Oops, going back. Although we have one day where we're allowing the contractor to do some hand chipping on that pier, and we're going to have them use flaggers to control any foot traffic through there. There is some deficiencies on that pier with concrete that we want to repair. We're requiring them to clean the path and repair damaged portions of the river trail. We are planning to repave this portion of the river trail that the contractor will be using. There's no restrictions on river traffic, and the use of the wooden bridge to the west of the railroad bridge is prohibited. So our contractor on the south end, our contractor is going to access the property through the railroad property, similar to what they did several years ago when there was another rehabilitation done on this bridge. So looking at this from kind of the aerial view, there's going to be work done from the north side where the contractor is going to build out platforms so they can access the pin hangers below. And to do that, they'll come across Barton Drive here, go down here, and work below the bridge. On the south end, they're going to come from the railroad down onto the Park Road and then exit and work under the bridge here too. And out into the river spans. Here's a schematic of the rerouting of the pedestrian path. So we have pedestrians near Barton Road. Here's Barton Road, north is up. The pier is this rectangle here. Currently the path runs on the south side of that pier. But in order for our contractor to work and come across down to the river, they're going to reroute that path. Path will be 6 feet wide through that area. Here are the contractor access staging areas. So on the north end, they're going to use a small part of this here, a small part of this grass area, and access down below. On this side, they're coming across. This area shows where their movements will conflict with, I don't want to say conflict, but will be, they'll kind of intermix with park traffic and come down here and be working from here. We do have some impacts to vegetation with this project. We did work with the City Parks Department to try to limit this as much as possible. We did note the trees in this area, the city was not concerned about. We do need to do some clearing here in order to construct our temporary platforms. There was one kind of species that, there's one oak tree here close to Pier 6 that the city asked us to replant. And so we'll do that. The rest of the trees were species that the park department was not concerned about. One of the bigger hurdles we had was the cliff swallows that nest under the bridge. Typically, when MDOT comes across these on our bridges, we often will remove the nests so that prior to the nesting season. But we understand that the cliff swallow population is important to the city. So we did several things to try and help maintain that population. One is we added notes to restrictions to the contractor about removing any nests that are existing. And we also staged our work to work in areas where there were fewer nests during nesting seasons. Most of the nests, going back here, most of the nests are on the south end of the river. There was a few on the north end. And so our plan was to work from the north end first, and then later in the summer, when breeding season or nesting season should be about finished up, we would move to the south end and work there. There are not many areas where we will be close to them, but there's some places where the pin and hangers are, about 6 to 7 feet away from the nest locations. So we're trying to minimize our impacts to those cliff swallows. So I tried to keep it kind of keep the presentation kind of high level, but if there's any detailed questions that anybody has, I'd be happy to answer those.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Let me just say.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say that Jeff did a nice job of the presentation, and they've been great to work with in terms of planning for the cliff swallows at Knapp. That's one of our concerns there. Most of the vegetation impacts are buckthorn and some other invasive shrubs. So what made that area of concern to us is cliff swallows are not a real common species around here, and they nest up underneath structures like MDOT's bridge there. They tend to be, they're colony nesters, so there's a bunch of them that live together, or that in the same area. They build these nests out of clay up there, stuck to the bridge, and they'll use that nest year after year. So once they get established there, they keep coming back every year. So we appreciate the work that they've done trying to stage this to minimize any impacts to those cliff swallows, which are a popular attraction for a lot of local birders.
Good information. Pravina, did you have a question or comment?
Yes. Question about the humans and the wildlife. One, from the human standpoint, this may be an MDOT question. Will you have to shut down the entire bridge, or will there be portions closed so traffic will continue to move? And then the second part is, with all the construction, is there any thought beyond the swallows, if there's any impact in the environment in terms of any animals or trees or natural features down below that you think could happen?
Yeah, so we do have some lane closures on M14, although those are all scheduled for nighttime, so they should impact people as little as possible. And then we shouldn't be impacting anybody on Barton Drive or the park roads. Does that answer your first question?
Yes.
Okay. The second question was about animals. We don't have any work planned for in the river, so that takes care of a lot of fauna issues in there. We didn't identify any other endangered or otherwise fauna species that I guess habitat that area. And there's no, underneath besides the tree area that we talked about, the tree clearing, and again, those were identified as, low value species or invasive species. I guess the park department agreed that there wasn't any long-term impacts there.
Yeah, I'd say it's not a very hospitable spot under there. It's all just rock. The only damage, I think, to the vegetation is going to be getting the equipment in and out, as they talked about. There's one oak tree that they're going to replace in there, but otherwise, the impacts, it's not a real high-quality wildlife habitat place right now, other than if you're a cliff swallow and can stick to the underside of the bridge.
Right. We've placed riprap. There's a thick layer of riprap on the south shore of that, underneath the south end of that bridge. It's all natural stone, but it's like Dave said, not intended to be not hospitable, because we don't really want trees growing under the bridge.
Any other thoughts or questions right now? Okay. Well, Jeff and Dave, thanks for coming and sharing this presentation with us today.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thanks.
Thank you. Moving on to the reports section of our agenda. First up, a report from Parks and Recreation Manager. Since Colin's not with us today, I'll let you go ahead, Josh.
Thanks. I will make it very brief. Deliveries are open through Sunday, and then they close for the season. And the senior center is opened up a little bit to some in-person events and classes, which is it's a good thing to be coming out of the last 16 months or so. And they are also holding a Halloween drive-through this Friday, the 22nd, from noon to 1. And their drive-through events have been well attended. So it's good to have some things going on there. But I will leave it at that, and we'll keep moving on.
Great. Thank you. Any questions for Josh? All right. Patty's not able to join us today, so no RAC report this month. Other relevant commissions, committees, boards, and our task forces. Steve, I know you have to run soon. Is there anything regarding the Center of the City task force?
Really nothing to report back to this group. The meetings are still underway, trying to find the right mix of activities and way to outreach to make sure that we've got the right audience. I guess I'm curious to think maybe the city needs a new place to put its band shell, but so we'll see how that goes.
All right,
Steve, I don't think you're the first person to have that idea. Actually, I think we have. Anyway.
Well, you never know, I guess. All right, great. Thanks, Steve. Moving on to regular business. First up is a resolution to recommend the food forest continue at Leslie Park and to renew the agreement between the True Earth org and the city of Ann Arbor. So we have a few folks from the food forest joining us today, but I'd like to let Scott Spooner go first, just to present the staff perspective. So Scott, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, just to remind everybody where we were on this. Back in April of 2020, there were some comments about what's going on at Leslie Park, and we contacted the people that were out there, and they were putting together a food forest. And we talked to them a little bit about what that meant and how to best work with the city to try and do that. And they came back last September to talk to you about that. And they got an agreement signed with the city. And part of that agreement was they were going to come back at this meeting and tell you about their successes and maybe some of the challenges that they faced over the growing season of 2021. And Shunasi and Robin, as well as a couple other people, are going to talk and show a little presentation.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Shunasi or Robin, do one of you want to begin?
Hi.
Hi, welcome back.
Thank you. It's nice to see you again. And we have a couple other coalition members here with us because, we have been the only faces you're seeing, but we're not the only people as sort of the backbone of the project. So to start our presentation, we were hoping that Ile and Tuya could introduce themselves to you, and then we'll go from there. So maybe Ile, you want to go first?
Hi, my name is Eli Crowley. I am a senior at Eastern Michigan. I grew up in the Arrowwood neighborhood, abutting the Leslie Park where the food forest is. And I've been involved with the food forest for a year now. Just having a brief look at the city's A20 carbon neutrality strategy. The three guiding principles listed are equity, sustainability, and transformation. To me, this project absolutely nails all three of those. Now, I personally would replace the word equity with ecology, as I think natural ecosystems are inherently equitable. This food forest exemplifies many ecological functions, such as nutrient soil balancing through planting of certain plants together to naturally balance the soil without adding fertilizers. This food forest project is sustainable. It produces locally grown food. The edible garden stacks functions, growing food, engaging in carbon capture, reversing soil erosion, and creating nutrient-rich topsoil and in natural biome and habitat for wildlife and insects. Lastly, this project is transformative. The reality of the matter is that the swath of grass that was there before this project was an ecological dead zone that the city was paying to maintain. What's there now is a biotic classroom where neighbors, friends, families, and colleagues can meet, learn, talk, and eat, and establish a new way of living and connecting with the natural world around them. Thank you.
Thanks, Eli.
Thank you, Eli.
Tuya?
Hi, my name is Tuya Ritchie, and I also live at Arrowwood, or I live at Arrowwood Cooperative, and we've lived here about 8 years, my husband, my 7-year-old son, and I. And we're really pleased to be part of this Leslie Park food forest. And it's brought so much joy and just community to our lives, and we're really happy about that. I specifically think that this project adds so much to our social and emotional wellness of our community. And I also think that the intergenerational piece is really important. And I've just been so pleased to be a part of it. It's been very meaningful to me. I think it's very important that we have spaces in our community where we can gather, and also that we can have in sort of more urban settings, like in our little cooperative, it's nice to have this beautiful garden set aside that everyone can enjoy.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Tuya.
Tuya.
So we're going to start sharing our screen now and do a quick little slideshow for you. So I think everybody was already part of the commission last year. Obviously, we'll be available for questions. So we're just going to kind of like fly through this to share.
Yeah, we don't have any new commissioners right now. So everyone was here last year or last time.
And then we also, like, we did want to say too, thank you, Paige, that we sent out, quite a bit of information in the packet. So if you are curious and maybe didn't get a chance to look at it, there's a bunch of great stuff in there, including a link to a little video that we put together on the website. So we're going to start with our sign that one of our community members designed, coalition members designed, and we had installed, which is in 3 languages. And it lets people know who we may not have interacted with or who may not be on the volunteer email list that the space is for everybody, that they can harvest there anytime, and also offers them a direct link to the website and a way to become involved with the project or know about things that are happening there.
So we want to speak a little bit to the ecological value of the project. We spoke a lot about this when we came in front of you last year, and it's been really a joy to see those benefits unfolding in real time this year. So like Eli said—
Can you speak up a little?
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Just speak a little. Yeah, that's better.
Okay, as Eli was saying, soil vitality is a really important thing. One of the main things we've done through this growing season is sheet mulching and helping create very vibrant soil. And you can see these plants really thriving in the soil, and it also helps with the carbon sequestration and soil water retention. It's an amazing pollinator habitat. Thank you. It's a really amazing pollinator habitat. You can see just here so many bees and other pollinators are coming to the space and finding food and forage here throughout the whole season, because we have flowers that are flowering at different times through the whole growing season. And finally, of course, localized food access is such an important part of this project, both for the cultural value and for the ecological value, because not only is it access to healthy food for community members, but it's really cutting down on the carbon footprint of that food because it's coming literally from right here in the community.
So I want to take a second and speak to the cultural value. Can you hear me okay? Robin has that theater background and is going to project. I'd rather not yell. So I also live in Arrowwood and have lived here for almost 35 years, and I back up to the park. And it's really important to us from the very beginning and the foundation of this that the coalition and any of the people who are welcomed into volunteering, that there's a clear embodiment of inclusion. There's wide age range, as Elay or Vishnu, who called in, was talking about, from tiny little preschool kids who come to the food forest on a regular basis to lots of elders who are a part of the community and are able to work. And that just feels like an essential thing, and that it models right leadership and community building in Ann Arbor. Although some of the people come even from far away. So a couple of young mamas who were here for a work day. And then just like briefly, our season in review. We had an opportunity, which we didn't really try to seek out, but it fell in our lap, to build relationships with some other community organizations.
So first, we wanted to let you know about our partnership with the Washtenaw County Conservation District. This was the first year of their Community and Schools Habitat Grant, which we applied for and were accepted. And Doug Reith actually wrote you a letter with a little bit more information about that. But we received $420 worth of wholesale native plants, native and other food plants, through WCCD. And we've received the bulk of those plants. A few of them are allocated to come in the spring, and many of them are already out, planted and thriving in the food forest.
Mm-hmm. And then the Elizabeth Dean Trust Fund was another fun collaboration where we partnered with them to bring more fruit trees to Leslie Park proper. So this is not technically in the food forest, but something that's beautiful about it is that it extends the edible corridor concept. And in the autumn, 3 peach trees, 3 pear trees, and 2 cherry trees went in.
And finally, we got to partner with a local Boy Scout troop in Ann Arbor who came out and were really excited about this as part of their service project. So it was clearly a really important educational opportunity for them. They were really excited for the chance to be of service and do some of the manual labor. They got the Rainbow Children's Garden beds ready and prepared to be planted in the spring, which is a really exciting project. And they're really looking forward to partnering with us into the future as well.
Mm-hmm. You received a letter from the troop leader as well. And one of the things that we didn't know is that as the scouts get older, they have to take on what is it called? The Keystone Project? Capstone Project. And that they're, offering their services to help advance any way that they can in the Food Forest Project. So, and then one of the things that we agreed to, in autumn of last year with all of you, which is just inherent to the nature of the food forest, is that we would do free public educational events and work days. And we've done many of them. And we're just going to show you some pictures through the seasons. And it's kind of fun to take a minute and look at how different the garden looks like here in this lower center picture. Even, we're pulling this off during COVID, still able to mask and be outside or distance from each other. This is a planting festival, and people are planting the calendula circle, which looks like this, and is pretty beautiful. And over here is a sheet mulching day. Some new people, like we've met lots of people that we've never known before, some who are really excited to jump into the hands-on work of it, and others who are elders who walk, particularly people from international people who are here from other parts of the world, are really excited about the food forest, and it feels like a common knowledge type thing for them. So a lot of those elders will just come and harvest as opposed to necessarily come to work days.
And we're having a lot of conversations both for this season and into the future about the people for whom this is a familiar concept of coming in and harvesting, and the people for whom it's a new one, and all of the ways that we as a coalition can be making the project more and more inviting for all of the people who would benefit from it and would like to be receiving those benefits from it.
Mm-hmm.
And Tuya has a lot of really amazing ideas about that.
Mm-hmm. So this is most of these pictures. The center one here is the rainbow flower garden, which will be stacking functions of cutting flowers, pollinator-friendly flowers, and edible flowers. And that's in the children's garden area, which is bordering the south end of this teeny tiny site. And that's the project that the Boy Scouts worked so hard to help us with. And then the rest of these photos are our Harvest Festival that just happened this past Saturday. And it was a really beautiful and phenomenal success. We had great attendance and really worked as a coalition, and this is kind of, where we're heading, to figure out how, if we're going to have over 40 people show up, all different ages and all different levels of experience, how can we best welcome them into and help them understand what the food forest has to offer? Because right now, a food forest, you don't build trees, they grow. and that part, like the part where all the many berry bushes that are in and fruit trees that are in, it's going to take a bit for them to establish, but there's lots there for people to harvest and benefit from. So we set up stations where different volunteers from the coalition could just stand, and smaller groups could be guided through and stand and talk about herbal medicine or seed saving or harvest the sunchokes or soil bending or whatever it was, and that worked really well. So in closing, mostly we want to say thank you. It has been an extraordinary year. We've been, in all honesty, rode hard and put away wet. And one of the most amazing things has been really hanging in with the core team of coalition members who, as you can see, come from different walks of life, different genders, different class experiences, different races, all kinds of genuine inclusion, and finding our way into working rhythms with each other, how to share responsibility and plan for delegating responsibility and sharing the wealth of the food forest. And now that the growing season is coming to a close, we have the opportunity to continue to meet through the winter, and that feels really exciting to us.
And it's been really important to us to see how both, moving from the core coalition who are there many of the weeks, more weeks than not, to people who've only come through once, even people who are visiting, this project continues to be a source of education and inspiration. Mm-hmm. And people who even have minimal interaction with the project are taking some of these ideas and principles and applying them in other places. Mm-hmm. And so the benefits of the project really are exponential in all of these ways.
Mm-hmm. And we have lots of great ideas going forward too. So I'll stop the screen share now, and we're here if you have any questions.
So if I could clear up a couple things, not actually clear up, but anyway, the 8 fruit trees that were planted in Leslie Park, they were through the Elizabeth Dean Fund, and so yes, technically the food forest is limited in where that happens in Leslie Park, but we have worked with the Dean Fund in many parks throughout Ann Arbor to plant trees. And Shanasi and Robin came to the Dean Fund with an idea to plant some trees in Leslie Park. And I was a very willing participant in that. It's something we do in other parks, so it's not unusual. While it's not technically part of the food forest, this is not an unusual step to have trees planted by the Dean Fund in a park.
Yeah, Scott, thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
They're saying, we do want to be clear, it's not at all part of the food forest. The only reason we include it here is because we see it as part of the spirit of the food forest of regenerative food growing, sort of rippling out farther beyond this project, and that those plantings are very much beyond this project.
Yeah, and the other thing I would like to say is, despite some missteps at the very beginning, back in April of 2020, since then, every interaction I've had with the Food Forest Coalition has been very positive, and they've been very receptive to any suggestions that I had.
Thank you, Scott.
Great. I think we do have some questions from commissioners. Rachel, do you want to go first?
Yes, hi everyone. I was hoping to get an update, and it might just be I just need this update on water access. Where are we at with how water is being accessed? Have we resolved any of the alleged controversies around said water access? I welcome an update on this. It might be helpful to hear from the Parks Department on their perspective on this. Thank you.
Well, actually, I think Shanasi and Robin, why don't you answer? We haven't really provided any water. I think we filled up one jug the very beginning of the planting season, and I think that was it.
Mm-hmm. Which was really helpful. So what we have out there, which is how we met Washtenaw County Conservation District, is 4 rain barrels on risers and 1 very large water tote. And Scott helped us find, a way to be able to have the water catchment system, although it's not catching water at this point, out there so that we could water plants. Because if you remember, in May, we had weeks of 90-degree weather, and there's no way that the food forest was even going to make it, let alone thrive, without some way to water. So initially what was happening is I had rain barrels installed on my place, which is close by, and we used a water bladder in a wheelbarrow to transport the water to the food forest and put it in the rain barrels. And then also that one time Parks did come out and fill the water tote, which is 330 gallons. And besides that, the rain has seen us through. So
we also do have some things in place to help need minimal water on site. We have tree watering rings that actually help get water from the atmosphere and bring water to the plants, as well as some watering stakes with plastic bottles that are clearly marked as a water source that help give a slow, constant supply of water to new plants. So water is a continued challenge on this site, but we have been very, very clear about only using water that is allocated for the site or is from rainwater catchment. And we're using creative solutions to be needing as little water as possible while still allowing the plants to thrive.
Which is part of what we want to be demonstrating water conservation there. That's important to us, and it has been important to us from the beginning. And so learning about those various tools that help keep young trees or berry bushes safe from drought, and the terracotta watering stakes that allow very localized watering to roots to go very, very slowly into the ground. So I hope that answers your question. And it was nice to see you out there the other day, Rachel.
Yeah, Rachel, does that answer your question?
So as I understand it, it's primarily been through rain barrels.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I do have one question. So we obviously got a lot of letters of support, a lot of emails. We did this afternoon receive one email that was not in support, and I just want to bring that up and let you have a chance to address it. There was one email that addressed a lack of outreach within the Arrowwood community. And so I'm just curious if you could expand a little on what your outreach efforts have been, or have you been reaching out to the Arrowwood community, advertising work days and events? And if so, how are you doing that?
Well, thank you for bringing that up. That's helpful. And the outreach to the Arrowwood community in the beginning was, pretty extensive, because anybody who lived in this area, it felt really important that they knew that the food forest was coming and that this is something that we wanted to do. And now the outreach is the same for everybody. It's very clear how to get on the email list, and anybody can do that, including all of you. And we would love it if you did and wanted to come out to events like and there are many people who are here from Arrowwood and or who have written in from Arrowwood that I think demonstrate that, in fact, how to become involved and the fact that you are welcome to become involved is communicated very clearly. So
yeah, we also have a survey, an end of the season, growing season survey that's available to anyone who, reaches out, anyone who has gotten on our email list, and then we make that very clear and publicly available, because this is a community project and it's very important to us. that feedback from the community can help it be better, because we want it to be for everyone.
Great. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? We do have a resolution before us that's included in the packet. If there's no further discussion, is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Moved by Anne. Is there a second? Seconded by Lauren. Yeah, okay. Motion to approve by Anne and a second by Lauren. Any further discussion or questions while we have the Food Forest Coalition here? And Scott.
I have a question.
Yes, Pravina, go ahead.
So just to clarify, will this be an annual discussion and to renew? Just so we'll go through this process again next year?
Yes, at the end of the, and Josh, feel free to chime in, or Scott, at the end of the resolution, there is a resolve clause that says we will revisit this once a year.
Thank you.
Yep, they will need to report on it similar to what they did today, and park staff will also be aware of it throughout the time and offer any feedback as well at that point.
So can we actually ask a question here and clarify this? It was my understanding that this resolution was approving the food forest, and that what we would be doing subsequently would be reporting on the project. So can maybe Scott, you can clarify this? Or
okay, I don't understand. Sorry, the question.
Okay, so what we understood was that today the food forest is gaining approval or not, and that in the future we would simply be reporting on progress, as opposed to every year coming back and it being evaluated whether or not the food forest would continue.
Well, I think reporting and then continuing it on every year. I think. Well, I think it's definitely. Go ahead, Josh. The resolution, I think, says. Sorry,
Yeah, no, you're fine. Many of our agreements with agencies such as yourselves have an annual review and renewal process in place. What we don't do and what we can't do is provide you with the land for eternity without renewals. And so the annual renewal is of the agreement. And typically even within this, we go, when we have new relationships, we start with annually. We may go biannually or do different things at different points, but it is a process of this is consistent with what we do with so many of other groups. It's not that October next year we necessarily are planning to not renew it. It's just that it's in there in that language so that we have that, so that we're consistent with all of our other organizations.
I was just going to say, yeah, this is not unusual for PAC. So we get annual reports from a lot of different organizations and partnerships in different areas around the city.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on the resolution? All right, we have a motion to approve the resolution by Anne and a second by Lauren. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, the resolution passes.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone who joined us today to present and for answering our questions.
Take care.
Good luck. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all so much for your time.
Thanks. Moving on to our next resolution, we have a resolution to recommend that Winchell Park be renamed Dr. Harold J. Lockett Park. And Josh, do you want to speak to this first?
Sure, I can go ahead since Stephen had to get going. So
yeah, Steve had to leave, and Rachel, if you have anything to chime in after Josh, that would be great too.
yeah, so obviously this was brought forward, and there's a subcommittee put together to look at the renaming of Winchell Park. And that subcommittee came to a conclusion in October 1st after reviewing the information, the survey results to come out, It generated 321 votes, and overwhelmingly, Dr. Harold J. Lockett was the one who received the most votes. And as a subcommittee, the decision, their recommendation is that we move forward with that name, and looking to have PAC support that, and then take that to council after this. So, Rachel, you've been more involved with this process than I have, so you may want to chime in as you would like.
Truthfully, I don't have that much to add. I think it's been a good process. I missed the last meeting. Shame on me. I was on vacation. And also, I had a ton of dental work done today, so I'm going to limit my comments.
All right. Understood. Well, thank you for being part of that subcommittee. Does anyone have any questions or comments regarding the resolution? I know it's all been provided to us in email and in our packet. Or is there a motion to approve the resolution?
I motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Rachel. Ruth, is that a second or a question? A second from Ruth? Okay. Motion to approve by Rachel to rename Winchell Park as Dr. Harold J. Lockett Park, and a second by Ruth. Any further discussion? All in favor of the resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, resolution passes.
I will add one thing now that it's, we were reached out, sorry if I stepped out of line with timing, but okay. We were reached out by a relative of Dr. Lockett, who is very excited about it and interested in doing it. And just kind of some of the timing that will take place with this, assuming that council, if council approves it, the name change will go in right away once it's approved, but then we'll look to get some spring and early summer work done at what will then be Lockett Park to get it spruced up, and then probably similar to the Graydon Park have a renaming ceremony probably in the summer at that point. So that way that's kind of a timing of what's going on with it. So, but yes, the relative was very excited about the name, and hopefully we'll be able to make the opening ceremony in the summer.
Great. Yeah, thanks for adding that. All right, moving on to item 9C, a resolution to establish an ad hoc committee to develop a park naming process. We discussed this at our PAC meeting last month, just as we've gone through the process now of renaming Graydon Park and what will most likely soon be Lockett Park after council approves. We want to have an ad hoc committee. This will be formed for 6 months. And then the resolution that lays out the membership that we would like to see for the subcommittee. We can extend the term if 6 months isn't quite enough time, but we wanted to give a starting place. Also, as you brought up at the last meeting, we'd like to see at least two PAC representatives on this, just to provide PAC perspective. And I believe, Ruth, you volunteered to be one.
Yeah, I'm interested. Yep.
Yeah, great.
I'm also interested.
And Rachel, okay, great. Rachel, that's great because Steve nominated you last month. So
great. He texted me that.
Okay, good. Great. So is there any discussion or questions regarding this resolution? Ian.
Just a point of clarification, the goal of this ad hoc committee would be to come up with guidelines, right, for park renaming?
Yep. Just develop some guidelines and criteria for park renaming going forward, which then would be brought back to PAC for us to review. Other cities do use criteria when naming their parks, so that's just one piece of information that this committee could look at or gather information from. So, yeah. Julie, go right ahead.
Yeah, I really appreciate this group working on this. I can say in the last year, I can think of at least 4 off the top of my head requests to rename parks. So it's becoming, I don't know, a thing.
Yeah.
So there's a real need. And I think we have some great processes in place that we can draw from already. So I don't anticipate that it will take years and years to do this, but having some sort of a system in place will help us also give some feedback to people in the community who continue to reach out and ask to have parks renamed, not ones that were formerly named, or I guess still currently named after eugenesis.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Thanks for that. Thanks for the support on this. Any other questions or comments or a motion to approve the resolution?
A motion to approve.
I'll move. I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Rachel and seconded by Ruth. Any further discussion? All in favor of the resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, resolution is approved. And Ruth and Rachel, thanks so much for volunteering. Josh will take note of your names and be in touch soon. Okay, thanks. We don't have any land acquisition matters today, so we're now at our second public comment period. Do we have any callers, Kristen?
No callers.
No callers. Okay. Great. Communications are included in your packet. No need for a closed session, so we stand adjourned. Thanks everyone for joining today.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Bye everyone.
Bye.